You want to debate? We. Well,
Yeah, minutes, we're good.
So before we do quits again, welcome to our regular meeting of council in person and live streamed electronically on Tuesday, May 6th. Opening of our meeting. A few announcements. This week is Emergency Preparedness Week, and the theme for 2025 is Plan for Every Season. Follow the township's Facebook page for information and tips. CD Saturday is being held at Rosedale Hall on Saturday, May 10th from 11 a.m. until 2 p.m. The township is hosting a burn permit registration session at the township office on May 14th from 4:30 until 6:30. It's National Paramedic Services Week, May 18th to 25th, and this year's theme is We Care for Everyone. International Firefighter Day was May 4th to honor firefighters for their service, remember firefighters who lost their lives during service, and commemorate firefighters that were killed on September 11th. Our land acknowledgement. The council and staff of the Township of Montague acknowledge that the sacred land on which the Township of Montague is now located and this meeting is being held is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. For our moment of silence, I'll ask that you remember former employee, past road superintendent John Spence, who passed away. Our thoughts are with his family. Thank you. So moved by Councillor Johnson and seconded by Deputy Reeve Carroll that the regular meeting of council agenda dated May 6, 2025 be approved as amended to move 8J Lanark County Traffic Advisory Working Group Minutes, April 16th, 2025, 8K Lanark County Media Release, April 23rd, 2025, and 8R Smith Falls Public Library Letter, March 31st, 2025, from information items to action items. All in favor? And that's carried. Disclosure of interest now at any point in time during our meeting. Moved by Deputy Reeve Carroll, seconded by Councillor Crabtree, that the minutes of the regular meeting of council dated April 15th, 2025 be approved as presented. All in favor? Carried. We have any business arising from our previous meeting? So moved on to our delegations, and we have one Mark Ranger lot line adjustment.
That's right.
Okay, thank you.
So that's Mark Ranger. This is my wife, Marcia Ranger, and these are our kids, Addison and Leo. And our neighbor, Carol Devonshire, has agreed to attend as well. So do you want me to start from sort of the beginning as to where this all starts? So I know I gave some preliminary information before, so I'm not sure where you'd like me to start.
Wherever you'd like, just a reminder of a 10-minute limit. That's all.
Okay, good. All right, so we've been in Montague now for almost 3 years. We decided to move out here essentially just to enjoy all the benefits that country living have to offer. We've loved it. Our kids have certainly been the beneficiaries of a couple of acres. We came from a starter home in Ottawa where our backyard was probably the size of this room. We were lucky. And so my wife and I, Marissa, decided, maybe late last year that we would look to increase the size of our property and went to a barbecue at Carol's place the summer prior. She mentioned that she had a relatively large acreage, about 125 acres or so. And so we started thinking about maybe Carol would be open to the idea of selling us a couple more acres to give us, you know, just more room for our children and ourselves as well to enjoy the property. And so we had a good chat with Carol. We came to a verbal agreement and we decided to proceed. So I met with Kristen. We had a good meeting here to discuss the process. I was a little surprised to find out the sheer costs involved with the transaction of this nature. I should have known a little bit better, but ultimately was a little bit surprised at all the things that need to be done. And one of those things that needed to be done was an environmental impact study. And I've gone out and I've had a couple of assessments done or some estimates provided to me. And it's of the opinion of the professionals that I've sought out, as well as the lawyer that Carol's worked with and that we are going to work with to close this transaction, that a lot line adjustment shouldn't necessarily require an EIS if we do not plan to build. And at this moment, we have no intentions of building on the property. It's surely just to provide, you know, again, more space for our children to play and for us to enjoy a little bit more nature out here in the country. You know, down the road, if we decide to ever build on the property, we'd be more than happy to proceed with getting an EIS in addition to the permits that would be required to build on the property. So essentially, our time here tonight is to request a exemption or an exception be made in order to have us proceed with, you know, purchasing the land and helping minimize the cost to some extent, which we've been quoted would be about $4,500 to $5,000 for the EIS. That would be in addition to the application through Lanark County, a new survey, and the legal fees. So I've estimated the total cost with the EIS would be about $15,000. And so this would hopefully cut our costs down by about, call it 30% or so. Marissa, do you have anything to add?
No, I don't think so. I mean, my understanding is, the, environmental assessment would need to be done if we were to build on the land anyway. So I guess we're just a little confused as to why it's required right now, just to make the lot line adjustment.
Yeah.
So it hasn't been clear to us what the purpose is at this point.
Other than to protect the, you know, the heritage, which we understand, and we're happy to do that when it comes time to actually disturbing the land, but that is certainly not our intention, and nor will likely be our intention for the foreseeable future.
I'll open it up to any questions at council. No. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
Moved by Councillor Crabtree, second by Councillor Bass. That council accepts the presentation by Mark Ranger as information. Okay, and council will direct staff to bring back the report for consideration. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. So report of municipal officers. Our first is municipal manager clerk on road assumption bylaw on Nolan's Road.
Just like guys, just one thing, just to make sure that there's an understanding from the people in the audience, what we just passed.
Yes.
Let's make sure that it was misunderstood. It looks like that we obviously accepted it. Okay. It's an accepting of the report. Maybe I'll let Kirsten explain exactly what that looks like, just so you have an understanding of what that looks like.
Sure. So I prepared the resolution to indicate that your presentation was being accepted by council as information. And now I will bring a report back to council with sort of my rationale for why I requested it and an explanation, and then council will ultimately make the decision.
Okay.
At a follow-up meeting of council.
Okay.
Okay?
And they'll be informed of when
Yeah,
that
we'll
is,
definitely keep you informed.
Okay.
when that discussion is, yeah.
Okay?
Perfect. Thank
And
you.
you're welcome to stay, but you don't have to. Up to you.
Yeah.
So I'm sure the kids don't really want to hang out.
You'll have to listen to Cracker.
We love them to stay, but they won't find this entertaining.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
They came prepared.
Some of the other people in the audience, they didn't understand what that is.
So now we'll go to municipal manager.
I'm like sitting here. Okay, perfect. Okay, so this first report, it's gonna look quite familiar because we had one, in April. So this is a road assumption bylaw that directly relates to, a severance application. So if there is a need for additional road frontage or road realignment, then we request that that portion of land be conveyed to the municipality as one of the conditions of consent. This was one of those situations, so there was a deed prepared and property conveyed to the municipality with some frontage on Nolan's Road. So this report here is essentially just letting you know that that transfer had been completed and this road needs to be assumed by bylaw. And the bylaw is attached to this report, and I believe it's on the agenda for this evening because it's pretty much just housekeeping to just go ahead and pass it instead of bring it to the next meeting. If anyone has any questions for me.
So moved by Councillor Bass, second by Councillor Johnson, that council pass the attached road assumption bylaw, assuming a portion of township owned road into township's road system as per the draft bylaw presented this date. All in favor? That's carried. Our next report is also municipal manager clerk on Rosedale Hall rental to Montague extended program update.
Okay, so you'll recall that the Montague Extended Program was a delegation at our meeting in March, I believe it was. And they were looking for Rosedale Hall to have their summer programming. Generally, they use the Montague Public School, but it's undergoing some renovations this year, so they needed an alternate facility. So they approached the township to use Rosedale, and council agreed to allow them summer use of the hall at a reduced rate. I will say that this has been a learning experience for us. We've never, to my knowledge, done this before, and there's been a lot of additional work involved in preparing this facility to be used for a childcare program. So this report does indicate that there will be a requirement for 5 additional water samplings to be done by the township, and these are done at a cost to us. We do have to send staff over to do the testing, and then we have to submit it to a lab, and there is a fee for that. I'm not exactly sure what that fee is, but I have spoken with the director of the program, and they have agreed to pay the cost of that water sampling. But our fees and charges bylaw doesn't account for these unique circumstances, so in order for us to charge something that's not in our fees and charges bylaw, a report is being brought to council for basically for approval of charging these additional fees. So the recommendation is to collect the water testing fees from the Montague Extended Program in advance of the program starting, so that we're not paying out of pocket and then trying to collect the money later. And additionally, charging an administrative fee for staff's time over and above what's normally contemplated in a rental agreement. For, additional access to the hall for inspection. So there have been health unit inspections and playground inspections and measurement inspections, and these have all required staff to go over and allow access into the building. And then again, our water operator is gonna have to go and do the water sampling. So the suggestion is, an administrative fee of $50 per hour, and we would track that time for basically moving forward, not going backwards, but any time moving forward, $50 per hour. Council might also want to consider a larger deposit. So we charge $200 for a rental. But we're talking about a large number of kids and maybe a larger potential for some damage, not intentional by any stretch, but we might want to look at increasing the deposit to a larger amount, but I'll leave that up to council's discretion. If there's any questions, happy to answer them.
Any questions?
I think that's like appropriate, obviously, to charge the additional fees needed if you're taking extra time, because this is going outside. I'm wondering also too as well, if we should be putting that on the side note, the jot notes, next time we're updating that fees and charges bylaw to kind of put in notes in there about additional charges may apply or additional thing, or whatever for staff time for it, extra requirements that may be needed for a pencil. And then it just doesn't, we wouldn't have to come back for that. It's like, yeah, if we go to another extended program, another thing that needs water testing, that kind of idea, it's already in our fees and bylaw charges to make sure that that we can just do that. Interesting about the play structure, do we not have that, doesn't that have to be checked for our own insurance purposes, or do we have to like kind of check off that it's checked, that it's okay for our own insurance purposes?
Staff do regular inspections, but as part of their licensing, they have to have an independent playground inspector come in and do that.
That's interesting, so. it's,
Yeah.
So I know, I think that's, yeah, it's appropriate, obviously, for any extra time that we have to do it. It is an interesting case, an interesting point about about an extra chart or bringing up a higher level because of maybe possible damage. In any of those discussions with them, did they discuss how did they take ownership of responsibility if there was damage that they would repair it? Or was that never?
That's not been a discussion point.
It hasn't been a discussion,
No.
a discussion point.
No, and I mean, the hope is always that there's not going to be any damage and it's not going to be an issue. So again, that's just completely at council discretion. If you want to just leave the $200 deposit, then we can definitely do that. If you think a larger deposit is warranted, then that's something that we can request.
I'm comfortable with the current, as we see how that goes, and I guess we'll learn as we go. But I'm comfortable with that, but I mean, I'm also like open for better thoughts.
Was it Hall before not damaged when somebody else rented it? A while ago?
We've had groups in the past.
Yeah, so would $200 come to our average damage though? Like $200 doesn't go very far. I'm not saying we have to, I'm just saying $200 isn't much if you have to start painting walls
Or if you call them plumbers because of plugged toilets
Yeah.
for toys that are trying to be flushed down, for example.
Yeah.
Which is quite common with kids, but $200 doesn't take long for a plumber's fee to be gone, so. Maybe,
And it is only a deposit, so like it's not, obviously, that we're charging very low amount for the rental itself.
right,
So it would just be, at the end, it would all kind of work itself out. If I'm not mistaken, so I think maybe increasing to 500, it's still reasonable. Because they're taking it for, is it 6 weeks?
6 weeks, yeah.
So it's less than $100 a week. And it would come off if there was no damages, they wouldn't always get too much. Depending on how we obviously do that. No, I'm mistaken, sir. I don't, they pay up
I
front.
think the deposit gets refunded.
Deposit's
No, I didn't know if it was all getting paid up front. Okay, so then it would just be refunded.
and then just get it back.
Well, I didn't. Being honest, I don't work physically here, so, no, it's,
I'm sorry, go ahead.
So in this case, we would want to increase it, but on average, though, we would keep it at $200 because when you have little things, I would say Euchroite or something like that, there's no money to put down a $500 deposit, is there?
That's township renting, that's not,
Okay, so they're
That's
exempt. But
this is an
anybody else-
external body that's renting the home,
Okay.
has like a $200 deposit.
What does everybody else charge?
I don't really know.
Because I want to be in line with what everybody else is, otherwise we lose business. So,
This is for 6 weeks too.
well, it's
Yeah,
not
this
like
is
it's for
unique.
1 week.
This
Because
is
that'd be
rental.
more a case where I'd like to sit down and chat with them and say, okay, well, what do you have any sort of deposits when you're in the school thing? Is there some, because they're an external body to the school, correct?
Correct, yeah.
So is there some sort of agreement there? Because they must have something similar, they're using the washroom center too, so. As long as we're staying in line with what's going on, because I don't want to cause any undue hardship to that
Yeah.
business, because when we first started with them, and now we're too far down the road, that if we all of a sudden jack up our rates. And they go, well, actually, now we can't afford that, well, where are they gonna go? So it's just as long as we're careful and cognizant of the fact that we've already entered into a basic agreement with them. And to start changing numbers, isn't always good.
but I think also in terms of the the agreement also changed on our end as well, where we've already assumed costs that we're not back charging for.
Yeah,
But
no,
we've also done a lot further testing, a lot more paperwork, and like you said, we don't, this was a learning curve.
Yeah.
And I think going forward, it's always good, but
And some of the inspections that are having to be on our site might not necessarily be required in a school environment because a day program in a school environment may already encompass into some of that that's required, like the inspections of the playground equipment,
The inspections of the playgrounds.
the water sampling, all that sort of stuff is probably part of that school already, where ours being a hall separate from is
yeah,
is my best guess, is that why we're having to have some of this extra done. It's protection for the children under the Ministries Act, I'm
yeah,
sure.
I have no problem with that part of it. I just have a problem when you're come to a basic agreement, this is what your deposit is, and then you change that part. I understand when, okay, all these new things came up, we have to send somebody over there. I get that part, but a deposit's a basic thing, and $500 won't cover anything either. So it's just one of those.
$500 is more of a, I guess, I think a deterrent.
Makes you think of.
And it makes you more cognizant of what's going on.
That's why I'd like to see, well, what do the other halls do? But if everybody else is $500, we're $200, well, sure, but if everybody's $200.
How many times do we have this come to, like how many times do they come, somebody wants to rent for 6 weeks?
Well, yeah, and that's why I think though, this is a separate matter, yeah, as opposed to like $200 for everything else. But this, and that's where perhaps chatting with them, saying, okay, well, this is 6 weeks, this is what it should be every, a different price. But
In our contract, do we have, you are responsible for all damages, because the deposit's there as if you don't,
Yeah.
if you don't pay, like, if you leave and it's like, hey, you gotta pay for this, and they're like, well, I'm not gonna pay for it, it's like, well, then you'll get $200 back. So like, or like, is it like, in our contract anyways, and I would think that they wanna uphold
Yeah.
to that contract
because
though.
that's a real, because I'd like to know, well, what's our wording? Because the $200, I agree with Jeff, it's not to cover damage, it's to cover, you made a mud all the way across, we have to bring in the cleaner, that's what I'm doing that.
It covers minor things, it doesn't cover anything major.
Yeah, but I would think we have contract language that would cover that, because if someone rips out a toilet.
You're responsible for that, yeah.
Yeah.
And we, like, I mean, if they did enough damage, if they did like $5,000 worth of damage, we would be going to a small claims court or some
Yeah.
kind of thing to say, you need to pay for this, and like, this is the damage you did, and you need to, and we would be. we'd be
I'm just
going-
not sure that the correct vehicle in this case is the deposit.
But what does our contract say?
I was trying to.
I figure you guys are doing
on the
that, so I can
website.
say, yeah,
I have it pulled up.
yeah.
In the rental agreement, it says the township of Montague will collect a $200 security deposit at the time of rental. If the rented facilities meet a minimum standard of cleanliness and repair after the event as determined by the township at its sole discretion, the deposit will be returned without interest or penalty by check up to 2 weeks after the event date.
We don't have any verbatim in there, but if you do damage to our building, that's not big, because look at our contracts and saying, we have stuff in there that says. You are responsible, there's nothing in there saying you are responsible for the damage that you do to our building.
Says cleanliness and repair.
That's all.
Yeah.
But that's what we're saying, so the $200 wouldn't cover drywall.
No.
You know, so maybe it's more important that we change our contract lease language as opposed to the deposit. Just beef it up a little bit so that if you destroy our toilets, you have to pay for them.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's standard verbiage or something like
Mhm.
that. Okay. Oh,
This is, like you've all said, this is a different line of rental that we're not used to doing.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
We're used to that, hey, you're renting it for 5 hours. The,
Of that.
hey, you basically own it for 6 weeks.
Yeah.
But even in that, for that person that's renting it for a wedding, if they rip the toilet out, we wanna make sure there's.
Yeah.
There's
No,
written in there that
exactly.
says like,
Yeah.
you are responsible for all damage that you do to the
Yeah,
building, like.
and that is
it's-
usually the clause you
Yeah.
see in almost any sort of a lease agreement, is you're responsible for the damage, so. Like when you.
Unnecessary damage or like, there's stuff that happens, but.
Yeah, well, yeah, there's incidental
There's
damage,
incidental,
but there's also, and it's a pretty standard clause, I think you almost verbatim get what it is.
Yeah.
I've seen it before when we've rented places and that, so.
Well, unless we just give the $200 for this one and change it the next time. you know.
Yeah, because they've already signed on with us, correct?
They have submitted their application. They've not paid any funds to date. Deposit's not been paid yet. There will be, sort of an addendum to the, contract because of some additional lead testing and flushing that they're responsible for, just to ensure that everyone is aware of everyone's responsibilities, so that we're not getting contacted throughout the term, and so we can include some wording in the
Yeah,
addendum.
so exactly,
Outside this, yeah.
maybe that's what we do right there, and that'll cover ourselves for that.
Okay.
If that makes
I think that, yeah, that would, yeah, that you are responsible, yeah, put that in that, and then that's part of that.
Yeah, because I think that's what we're really trying to cover all.
Damages or.
So that'll be the addendum to this, and then we'll have staff bring back our rental agreement.
Yeah, right, exactly. So the extra pieces of like, if there's additional charges, and then like maybe like cleaning up to add this to it.
And staff are currently working on updating the fees and charges bylaw. That's something that's ongoing right now.
Yeah, for sure, yeah, perfect. Good discussion.
So we're in agreement though on the administrative fee for the extra that's been acquired.
Yes, yeah, 100%.
So moved by Councillor Johnson, second by Deputy Reeve Carroll, that council authorize staff to collect the additional water testing fees from the Montague Extended Program that will be incurred as a result of their rental of Rosedale Hall in July and August of 2025. And that council authorize staff to charge an administrative fee of $50 per hour for staff time over and above the normal services contemplated in a rental agreement. All in favor? And that's carried. Been moved by Deputy Reeve Carroll and seconded by Councillor Crabtree that council approve the minutes of the committee of the whole meeting of April 15th, 2025, and approve the recommendations contained within. All in favor? And that's carried. Moved by Councillor Crabtree, seconded by Councillor Bass, that council accept the minutes of the Marrickville Public Library Board meeting of March 25th, 2025 as information. All in favor? And that's carried. Moved by Councillor Bass and seconded by Councillor Johnson that council accept the minutes of the Montague Recreation and Culture Committee meeting dated February 27th, 2025 as information. All in favor? That's carried. Moved by Councillor Johnson, seconded by Deputy Reeve Carroll, that council accept the minutes of the Montague Recreation and Culture Committee meeting dated March 27th, 2025 as information. All in favor? That's carried. The only comment I had on the minutes was that I didn't find that when it mentions activities, it doesn't have dates beside it. So I don't know if that's something we can get added, but that was the one thing I noted in reading through about activities. It doesn't have dates. On the bylaws, moved by Deputy Reeve Carroll, seconded by Councillor Crabtree, that bylaw 4141-2025, being a bylaw to assume a portion of Nolan's Road into the township's road system with the township of Montague, be read a first, second, and third time and passed, signed, and sealed this 6th day of May 2025. All in favor? That's carried. For information items was on the page. J, K, and R. Okay, so J, Lanark County Traffic Advisory Working Group minutes, which are new. We've not had them.
Yeah, we haven't, it's cool that they're here, and it's, I think they're kind of handy to do because it does discuss some of the roads that are obviously in our township, and the main one, when we talk about the traffic advisory one, this is one that I guess kind of brought up too as well, is about speed management. So this has been a big discussion that's been talked about for a little while in the traffic advisory, and this actually came to the last committee meeting at the county too as well, to kind of move forward with automatic speed enforcement. So that's like the cameras that flash how fast you're going and what that looks like. We've done a big, obviously, overlook at all the county roads and everything else to see in only community safety zones it can be done into as well. That's the biggest portion of it too, as well as when they do it. We only have so many community safety zones in Lanark County too as well. We're not the city of Ottawa where it seems like they have them everywhere. And very extended. I don't want to put them down, but it seems like it, but ours seem pretty tight and pretty good. And we obviously have 2 examples on Rosedale in front of our school and our 22 acres, which on a side note, I know one of our residents brought up about extending in front of the 22 acres, and our staff did a great job of following up at the county. To have that extended, and Sean and the guys there are gonna do that. They're gonna extend it out past the 22 acres. When I went to the meeting and I asked them about it, they're like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. We're on it and we're gonna do that. So kudos to staff on that side note to make sure that it's encompassing the 22 acres now too as well. But we looked at all of those areas too as well that are that seem to be, people are really speeding through those areas, which is in front of schools and in front of community safety zones. And there's a list of a few of them there that basically what we're gonna start out with. But ironically enough, number 5 in the list is in front of our school too as well. The other one was too new. It hasn't got enough data yet. They haven't got that far yet, but it's in front of our school where number 5 in the list. So we could be seeing something, it could get ratified tomorrow at county for us to continue to go down that road. To start looking at implementing those, so we could start discussing also having them in our township on that county road. That is the only community safety zone that we have in our township. We've also talked about where we could open it up to municipalities after a year of doing it. If they have, because some municipalities like Carleton Place, Perth have community safety zones in their actual town limits, so they'd be on their municipal roads. Anyways, this is one of those things where like speeding was one of, and traffic safety was one of the top priorities on the county side of it. But stuff that happens there obviously trickles down to us too as well. So I just want to make sure everybody's aware of sort of where it's going with as far as that discussion of the advisory of the campus.
But there's also fines then that come through with that.
Yeah, this is not like just taking a picture license plate. It's the same thing as if you're going like arbitrarily, you're going 15 at 40 zone, and that's what it is. Yeah, the fine that's, and you get the fine in the mail, just like whatever, anywhere else too as
It's
well.
issued by plate.
Correct, yes, to the driver and everything else. So to the driver, the owner of.
The owner of
the
the vehicle.
sorry,
The owner of the
correct that.
vehicle.
Yeah. So, anyways, it's obviously a big discussion. We had a big discussion at and we talked about it pretty thoroughly, I think, at the county too as well. Just trying to understand like, of what we need to do. But the biggest thing is, I think, is where those funds go. And I think that's the biggest question that people are always gonna have. And we want to make sure that we really give good communication about where those funds go. So any funds that are gathered in, there's a separate reserve that will be made for those funds. And those funds can only be used for traffic safety measures and traffic calming measures. They cannot be used for something else. There has been some municipalities that have been caught with putting it back into general reserves. But that was something that we were really adamant about, saying that reserve has to be made up and has to be showed. And it has to be showed exactly where that is being spent to help, hopefully, that this is, and I think Richard Kidd said something about that, saying where the people that are getting fined for it, we're using that money for the speeders to help try to make the road safer too as well. So I think there's a lot of discussion about it, but I'm, obviously open for any feedback when I go back to our traffic advisory from anybody from council too as well, to make sure that sort of have that feeling of what we're doing. It's a really touchy subject, those cameras things.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So just quick, so would it be depicted as you see in Ottawa, where you'll see that sign about 100 feet ahead says speed camera enforcement ahead, and it's the safety zone, and then you'll see the camera and it gets you as you go by, but are we gonna do it identical to?
Those are all legislative, so great question. So they're legislative. You have to put up signs saying it for, I think it's 60 or 90 days, saying it's coming.
Yeah.
And then the signs say, so it has to, all of that's legislative, it has to be signed, it has to be warned, it has to be out there. So yeah, exactly. It's not, they're not trapping systems.
Yeah.
It's a very big warning saying, we already have the community safety zones up saying slow down.
Yeah.
But now a sign saying, we're gonna take your picture and find you on top of this now too as well. And when we look at some of the data we've seen on some of our roads that are right in front of schools,
Oh, yeah.
and even the data that's in front of ours, it's pretty crazy what's being blown. And we also discussed, there's a little bit of that discussion point too as well, saying that's like, when is it also need to be enforced? Is 2 a.m. an appropriate time in front of the school and all that kind of stuff, but we're still discussing that. So right now, what we're looking from council to say, hey, listen, from the county council, are you open for this? Because we don't want to dive into everything and then county council comes back and says, we're not interested in doing that, right now it's unanimously been passed by, to continue down that road. As we bring back more information as we go, but hopefully it could be an avenue to help sort of slow people down, so, but like I said, yeah.
Yeah, because I've seen some too in different municipalities or cities where they have it, especially in school zones, it's from 8 in the morning till 4 o'clock or something like that. They do have a time limit.
Yeah.
Where the camera does the enforcement, because their speed goes down and then goes back up again after those hours.
Yeah.
So I could see something like that. It's just a matter of, but if that speed is always the same, it's 24 hours. a day.
Yeah.
Now, in some of those cases too, as well, those speeds go down to 40.
Yeah.
Ours are 60 no matter what.
Exactly.
So that could be like where it's like, does it make a difference to do that? Cause I mean, like it's like, you shouldn't be going 75 or 80 regardless
Yeah.
at any time of the day. So like, it's like, we wanna do it, like the 40 zones I get, because it's
Yeah.
like, it's a tricky one. Cause one of the arguments, and actually, it was nice, we had one of the OPP officers, I remember, we were discussing, and I looked over at him, like, this is all fine and dandy, but I wanna know what he thinks. And I was kind of like, and it's like, and that was their kind of comment, was they can't be everywhere, they can't be, and they do like them because it takes some of the burden off them for those, because they can deal with obviously some of the higher crime issues that they're dealing with, so it's.
But even with that, it's in front of schools. I have no tolerance for anything. It's, you know, it's in front of a school. Like, you know, you see people in our cameras, like people are doing 90, 100 past there. In that short of a space from the stop, so like, it makes no sense. So I'm all for continuing down this road, because we have flashing light cameras now.
Yeah.
Gathered all the data for us, shows people doing 80, 90, 100 right down that road, so.
Do they do that for seniors too? Where you have seniors on the road, will they do that for seniors? Is it just?
So it's
Like, you
schools,
know, where the seniors have a chance, not necessarily in our seniors where you go across the road, but there's lots of seniors in the town.
community zones, so community zones, so like if you have a senior center, you have a community center, you can apply to have a safety zone area, which we do, right now we do, right, because the
Right in front of us.
right in front of,
Yeah,
we
we have it.
we had that change
Okay.
this past year, is that was added for.
That is true, I remember it was changed.
Yeah, so we have that, so that area now is there,
But there's no
so
cameras on it.
No, because
That's what I was
that's-
asking, was the camera.
we're getting, that's where we're stepping to, so.
So question for that, would we have the ability, because we have 2 safety zones, where it's like a portable camera system where we can move it? Or is it something that you put it in the ground and do it that way?
So we're not 100% there yet.
Okay,
So that's the next
That's good.
steps, is like, because there's been discussions about different pieces where you can build a box thing, and that's where the camera goes into, that box thing stays there all the time, so it looks like maybe it's always there, but people don't know it's there. There's also the ones that you can post on, like the post, and they're portable. There's the discussion about what the vandalism looks like for those
Yeah.
things, especially in the rural area.
yeah,
There's like, so all of those avenues, we're not that far yet, so that's where it's like, hey, is everybody on board, we wanna do this, or yes, everybody says, yeah, well, let's keep going with this,
because
okay?
Ottawa
So-
rotates the red light cameras
Yes.
around, so
Yeah.
lots of times there's nothing.
And these would be rotated too, so we'd only have, we'd have 2 sets of them, sort of set up, so we would start in this one spot, and then we would rotate to another spot. We're like, once again, the recommendation that we have at the beginning is to start small.
Yeah.
And then move around, so anyways, it's kind of one of those steps again to try to find big safety. We wouldn't see it in Rosedale, on our road, probably until, if things are kind of go along their plan, they'll probably 2027. Realistically, as because there's the roads that are, we're not one of the top 4, I think we're number 5. So it's like just getting through the, you know, working your way down the list and then kind of rotating it back through. If we get that to where getting through that discussion, so we're gonna share that, make sure everybody's.
So do we have the volume to pay for itself? Cause like I know there's a cost, obviously, unit. And there has to be a certain amount of volume to offset the cost versus,
Great question.
cause I know that they're not free. And if you're only getting free tickets.
Yeah.
There's a cost.
It's a great question. So yes, we've crunched the data, because there would not be a purpose of, and companies will do that too as well. And we've crunched the data, and yes, the revenue brought in from just those few areas is substantial enough that it will more than cover and pad a reserve account that will help pay for other traffic. So yeah, it's not something that that with the projected data number we have right now, it's not something that could lose money. It's, yeah. a great question, that's a great question. Like, there's no point in doing it if it's a.
No, like,
Well, then you don't really have a problem.
You know, that's, yeah, it's exactly, you don't have a problem. Yeah, yeah.
Like, I know in Ottawa, they do very well, like, I work off of Walkley right now, and I can tell you, it goes off a lot.
Yeah,
Um,
went off for my daughter twice.
they went out for one of the guys getting coffee, so they made them $80.
Yeah.
I know, I just wanted to make sure that, like, we're not digging ourselves a hole, and, because I
Yeah.
imagine there's a contractual obligation.
Yeah.
Because happened for so long, they get a portion of the revenue based on us paying for the costs, and so I just wanted to make sure that.
Yeah, there's different cost revenue and different ways to go, like turnkey solutions and all that kind of stuff to go into. Yeah, so that we kind of crunch those data numbers too as well to figure out which one makes most sense. And like, that's why also hitting your top places where people are obviously speaking the most. So yeah, so that's a great question. That's exactly what's kind of about through. So, yeah. And then any other things about people's thoughts about it, that kind of stuff, I'm always game for it as we're gonna go through this process over the next whatever year, so, yeah.
Okay, County Council media release.
Just the media release stuff pretty quick. I think the cool one is the retrofit that's going on in Smith Falls, and it's all like the heat pump and everything else too as well. That's a huge amount of money. But going to heat pumps and everything else, that'll hopefully save us long-term costs. I mean, I'm assuming you see those in buildings that you're building new in Ottawa, and it's sort of the way to go. People are doing them, I guess, and it's I guess they're gonna work really well, so we have a lot of projected cost savings over the time with it by switching over to these the ground heat pumps. So that's in there, that's good. The other one is the paramedic service week proclaims. We have that from March 18th to March 25th. And we're gonna make sure that we post that on our social media sites too, as well as that comes up, which is great. We have great paramedics in our county, and they do a great job, and great chief. So yeah, so I think that's really good. And the other one is just that, like, because the council receives updates of municipal tools, it's actually quite an interesting document if no one's ever read it. And it's just talking about how we can take our steps through to start to try to figure out the best way to make affordable housing happen. And I think I'll commend Emily and the team in the county as they're working toward trying to find avenues to get more built and to help those folks out, so. I just want to acknowledge our letter from the Smith Falls Public Library from our budgetary thing. It's another one of those things when we have letters, I think it's appropriate for us to acknowledge what they are and what something can go forward to, and making sure that everybody's aware of what that looks like, so. Yeah, and I was gonna, I'd ask Kirsten one thing about too as well, about the Ottawa. And I said, is this something that we should be concerned about? And of course, Kirsten had already done her homework. And asked, like, to make sure that official panel limit is like, could that affect us at all? Is there anything about that? And you kind of come back and said you had already done your homework checking on that, and nothing was, or.
Right, I did speak with the township's planning consultant. I started to look through it and I decided I would reach out because it was a lot of documents and with a very short window of time to review them. And he essentially confirmed to me that these were mainly housekeeping amendments related to the PPS, and the larger cities, when you have public transit, there's a lot of changes in the PPS related to development in transit areas. So a lot of those changes in their official plan amendment relate to those items, so it doesn't affect us.
Just good, because it's always scary when you see that from the city of Ottawa. I think they're fringe on us or something like that. So thanks, that's amazing that you did that. Like, kudos to you for seeing that and also checking in to make sure that Montague is protected.
Anytime you receive a municipal wide official plan or zoning amendment, all of your bordering municipalities are circulated. So you see a lot come through and you've got them on all sides.
So we have no unfinished business, other business. Before we recess to go to committee of the whole, do we have any questions of our audience? Tom?
Yeah, I have one question. I directed to Jeff because he's on the traffic advisory working committee. When you're on county road, do they not have to tell you when the speed limit changes? Example, you go from here into Smith Falls. It's 60, the one sign, you get a little further, the next sign says 50. When you come out of Smith Falls, it's the same way, it's 50 on their side, you go a little further, it says 60. Where does it change? It doesn't say it begins anywhere. It's been that way for years.
I obviously don't know the answer to that, but
Pretty much half.
that's a great question, so I'll gladly take that, back to our group. And, cause you're asking for like, it should say it begins, you
Yeah.
mean? Or like a-
No.
Normally, if your speed limit drops, it says it begins here.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
You
cause
know,
it'll have signs saying that it's gonna reduce, then it says begins.
Yeah, it says
Instead of just
speed
saying
reduced
60.
ahead and then it says begins.
You don't just hit the sign and.
That's a great, actually, maybe I would, instead of me, I think it's a great question, I have no idea what the answer is. But maybe we could email, that staff could go ahead and ask the county like, about that.
Would that not be Smith Falls?
no, because it's county road.
So county road, yeah.
Because the sign tells you 60 ahead, but it doesn't, and then the next sign you see is 60, but it doesn't say begin.
Yeah.
I'm curious what the.
But it's the same way going into Smith Falls.
Yeah.
Our sign is 50,
It says begins.
and then you go a little further, the next sign says, or our sign says 60.
Yeah.
And then it goes into Smith Falls and it says 50, but it doesn't say 50 ahead, it begins, it's just
Because
50.
there is legislative like requirements for those things, so what is that one following the right rules? That's a great question, I think we should, I think that's great to forward off to,
I've never seen it anywhere that they drop the speed limit without telling you it's ahead
it's ahead.
and it starts.
Yeah.
It begins.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay, notes, yep.
Okay, yeah.
Good question.
Any questions online? No? Any other questions of the audience? Okay, to move by Councillor Crabtree and seconded by Councillor Abbas, that council recess council meeting at 6:48 PM. All in favor? And that's carried.
Okay, we're back.
Welcome back to the Committee of the Whole, in person, live stream electronically, Tuesday, May 6th, 2025. Immediately following county agenda. Opening a meeting. Land acknowledgement. The council and staff of the Township of Montague acknowledge that this sacred land on which the Township of Montague is now located is the meeting, and this meeting is being held is the ancestral and unceded territory of the Algonquin and Anishinaabe Nation. Adoption of an agenda. Moved by Councillor Bass, second by Reed Jennings, the committee of whole agenda dated May 6th, 2025 be approved as presented this date. All in favor? Carried. No, anybody has disclosure of interest, there's none of that. Report of municipal officer, municipal manager, clerk Karen Kristen Cote, 2026 municipal election update.
Thank you. So this report is mainly for information purposes, just to let you know that the county clerks have already started working on the 2026 election. It is a lot of work, a lot of planning. And I wanted to just bring this report to you to let you know that that process has begun, but also there are a lot of documents that need to be prepared for the election. And there are two items that I just wanted to bring to council's attention for consideration, because these will impact the documents that will be ultimately prepared. The first one relates to changes to council composition. So the Municipal Act contains provisions that allow a municipality to alter their composition of council. So that can relate to changing the names of your head of council. So some are mayors and some are reeves, and to add additional council members. We definitely can't take anyone away because we are at 5 and have to have at least 5. So there's just some legislation references in there. If council is interested on looking at a change of council composition, again, numbering or titles, then staff can definitely bring a report back to sort of provide a little bit more explanation as to how that would be achieved. The second item in there is if council wants a question on the ballot. So there is a legislative requirement that if the council does want to put a question on the ballot for the election, that they have to pass a bylaw with respect to that by March 1st of 2026. So that's just something to sort of keep in the back of your mind if that's something that you might be interested in. The financial implications noted in this report. So we do put money aside into reserves every year for the election. Obviously it happens every 4 years. In the 2025 reserves, we have approximately $23,930.09. So I guess that's not approximate, that's specific. And so the costs that sort of come off the top there are IntelliVote, who runs our online and telephone voting services. Any advertising costs, supplies, sometimes technology, for example, if we needed to buy a laptop to be used for the election, but then that laptop would be used by staff and then a new laptop would be bought for the next election. So there are costs, but we have sufficient funds in our reserves to pay for the 2026 election. Don't anticipate there being any shortfall. So this report is mostly for information purposes, but just to kind of put out there that there are a couple of things that you may or may not want to consider for the 2026 election, and just to have that opportunity there. If you would like staff to bring back a report with more information, then we can do that.
I have a question. Mr. Chair. Really grabbing that. With the reeve and the mayor, they're obviously interchangeable. Is there a reason why we're not all mayors or all reeves, or is there something to this, or was it just historically?
I think it's a personal preference.
Well, it used to be the smaller municipalities were all reeves and the urban mayors.
Oh, okay. I see.
That's kind of the way it is still said right now, because it's all Mayor Perth Carlton Place.
Yeah.
It used to be like, there used to be almost like a number, I think it used to be like 10,000 or whatever, but there used to be like
Oh, I
a
see.
set number, and if you were above that, you were
Okay.
strong mayor powers. I mean, what?
No, that's numbers, that's all by numbers.
Oh, there,
Yeah.
sneak in the strong mayor thing. No, no, sorry, I'd always wondered why it was two different things. I thought maybe it was rural versus urban, but.
And
okay.
then, as you notice then too, like with that, like, we have a deputy, Smith Falls does not have a deputy. Carlton Place has a deputy, and the way that they work it is then, it's based on the council as to whether you just appoint one position, like whether it be mayor or reeve, and then you have all council below, and then those that sit at county get appointed by however council decides, whether it be by the councillor that had the highest votes, whether it went by, who wants to volunteer to do it, and things like that, so, but it's a municipality's choice, but
So,
titles come from historic.
oh, really? Okay. Because Merrickville, it's a mayor, even though they're about the same size as us.
Yeah,
So we could go, read here and 4 councillors. Instead of having 3 councillors and a read and deputy read.
Yes.
That's an
option.
Wouldn't you have to have the deputy reeve to go to county? though?
Yeah, you could.
You appoint a
You could
person.
appoint one, could decide, like, as I said, with
Or the.
more votes or.
So that's the same sort of thing, the mayor, deputy mayor thing in Merrickville, that's what that is.
Yeah.
Oh,
So there's something you could do.
I think on their side, though, their county only has their mayors go, right? It's just, it's,
Yeah.
where our county is different because we have 2 people.
2 people. that go.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and I think they voted on who became deputy mayor when Ann, because she lost the mayor election and then came back as a counselor. And then became deputy mayor on a vote by the council.
Right.
Okay, I get it. It's not all set in stone and stuff.
Look at it. If we go that way, we'd save a few, couple thousand bucks on having that. From a counselor to a deputy read. Someone could look at it, doesn't mean you have to do it.
But wouldn't you'd still want to have the deputy read. So if you're rotating them around, you wouldn't really save anything, because wouldn't you have to,
You wouldn't necessarily have to.
You wouldn't have a position of.
You wouldn't have a
deputy
Position
if
of
you
deputy
rotate.
read, you
Well,
have 4 counselors in the read.
yeah,
But they
it's
would,
hard to say how they would work.
but they'd still get the county portion.
oh,
They
okay.
still go.
yeah, whoever your county representative.
Oh,
And
is.
Whichever one you pick then.
Oh, it's two
And how the
different
county
tiers.
would work on having a appointment, because, I mean, I know for us, we have read deputy, but, so for example, Smith Falls has a mayor, and then they have a counselor sitting there, and it was by an appointment, because I don't know, the county would want, like, you're rotating,
No,
because of the fact that, you know,
you're
Well,
right,
you'd want
they
consistency.
probably want consistency, so it'd either you be an appointment or it would
Yeah.
be by vote.
Most of there's
numbers.
numbers.
Yeah.
Well, something you could, maybe you could ask them, just to see what the county would want.
And make it easier for people running as well.
Yeah.
Like,
Good
because
to ask, I think.
Because there's always that fear, and I never ran as a deputy reeve, but when you're running as a deputy reeve, if you don't win. You are out.
Like any.
How's that happen?
Well, that's what I'm saying, like, in that position, I imagine, again, it wasn't in that position, but I can imagine it can be a little intimidating as you're watching the numbers.
Second question?
Yeah,
Can you, Mr.
Yes.
Mayor, can you be on the school board and a counselor at the same time, or do you have to be one or the other?
That's a good question. I think if you're approved, you're allowed to, but that's a good question.
That is a good question. I don't know the answer, but I can find that out. for
If you don't mind, if it's no trouble, it's not that I'm gonna run. I'd like to control it. No, it just popped in my head when we were talking about having school board, is it separate or is it something that? Like, cause we have the tiers going up to the county, where does the school board fit in that? A lot of questions, I'm trying to be like Tom and ask questions where there's no.
We appreciate Tom's question.
Yeah. Mine is not.
Our competition number is 5, is completely fine too as well, so.
If you choose to add one, then you can pretty much guarantee you're gonna be on a special list. Strong mayor powers.
Oh, Without a problem.
No, do that.
No, no problem. You could read them, can't understand rooms.
Anything else? Good. Moved by Reeve Jennings, second by Deputy Carroll, that council accepts the 2026 municipal election update report as information. All in favor? This, I don't get lost, right? Municipal manager, Kristen Cote, 2024 annual integrity commissioner report.
Chair. So attached to this report is a letter from Cunningham Swan. They are the township's integrity commissioner. And this report essentially summarizes a request from council for advice or any complaints that have been filed with the integrity commissioner, and we can happily say that in 2024 there were none. So yeah. Anyone has any questions?
We're good.
No.
You're gonna tell.
Moved by Deputy Reeve Carroll, second by Councilor Johnson. The council accepts the 2024 annual integrity commission report as information. And the council directs staff to post the report to the township's website. All in favor? Municipal manager, clerk, Kristen Cote, appointments to boards, committees, and under statutory positions.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So this report is to acknowledge that the MRCC did receive a resignation of one of its committee members. And this does happen. People's lives change and they can't commit to the time required. So Kevin Armstrong has stepped back as being a member of the committee, although he has expressed an interest in remaining on as a volunteer. We've also had another individual from the community, John Johnston, who has expressed interest in being a member of the committee. He has attended 2 meetings. He's been at an event, and I have no doubt whatsoever that he will be very actively involved in upcoming meetings and events. So this report is simply to acknowledge a resignation and authorize an appointment, which will keep our numbers exactly as they are, which is still small, but the MRCC is actively looking for members, and the terms of reference, you know, we're working on those as well. And there is a bylaw attached to this report, a draft bylaw that removes Kevin and adds Mr. Johnston, and also makes a small housekeeping correction under fence viewers to recognize Allison's title, her proper title. Anyone has any questions?
One comment.
Okay.
Just to follow up again from our events from the Easter breakfast. Oh, it's great that we have a lot of residents out of Montague Township that attend. And so if any of those residents wish to come forward as a volunteer for our activities, they could make an application and go through the process, and that would be greatly appreciated. Recognizing that, you know, if we've got the activity and they reside elsewhere, we certainly welcome to come and help us plan our activities.
Absolutely. Moved by Councilor Johnson, second by Councilor Bass. The council accepts the resignation of Kevin Armstrong as a member of the Recreation and Programming Committee in the Township of Montague. And the council authorize and appoint John Johnston as a member of the Recreation and Programming Committee for the Township of Montague. And further, that council directs staff to bring forth a bylaw recognizing the resignation of Kevin Armstrong and the appointment of John Johnson to the May 20th, 2025 council meeting as per the drafted bylaw presented in this committee. You do this on behalf of Ali? No. No. So I'm just reading it.
Does anyone have any questions with respect to the agreement that's attached to this report? It was brought by a previous public works manager, but unfortunately think there was some miscommunication with the Rito Trail Association. They hadn't seen the agreement. They had some concerns with some of the verbiage in there, so we kind of went back and made those changes, meaning Allison, and the agreement that is attached, is acceptable to all parties.
Moved by Councillor Bass, second by Reeve Jennings, the council approved the draft agreement presented this date to and enter into a road allowance use agreement between the Rito Trail Association and the Corporation of the Township of Montague. And that the bylaw approved and passed at the May 20th, 2025 council meeting. All in favor? Treasury Deputy Clerk Alison Bracken, office closure, financial system upgrading and training.
So essentially, there is some upgrading of our financial system that's required and it's going to, require most of the administrative staff to be available for that. So it made sense to, close the office since there won't be anyone to serve the public. We won't have access to any of our financial software for any payments, so, that's what the intent of this report is. At this point, that date is supposed to be June the 5th. Could that date change? Possibly, but we'll make sure that the public and council is notified if that date does require changing.
Somewhere to call the office, would they just get an automated message, or would there be somebody picking up the phone?
Well, there will be. Pardon me?
I think the phone would be set to night mode, as
Yeah.
if the office were closed entirely, since we're not gonna be having the doors open for the public. So they would be receiving the standard voicemail message, for anything like that, obviously. if the office is closed, then it's closed. I mean, unless, like Kirsten, as clerk, municipal manager, would like to keep it open and answer the phones all day, but I'm sure she's. a little
I guess
bit-
they were wondering if it was gonna be forwarded to anybody's other line. I guess that would be the only
Yeah.
question.
I'm not sure who that would go to, so I think it would
So
just be
close.
on night.
Night mode, and the emergency number is still there before the emergency stuff, so it's just more curiosity's sake is.
Yeah, and other staff will be in the office working, and we're not away.
No, I'm not.
So, yeah, so we'll,
Just more of the clarity of.
yeah, for sure.
And I'll say that fingers crossed that the upgrade goes well for them.
Oh.
Been there, done that, so that's why I want to say fingers crossed for them.
Thanks for that.
Yeah.
Moved by Reeve Jennings, second by Deputy Reeve Carroll. The council approved the closure of the office for training and upgrading of the financial system on June 5th, 2025, or any date advised by the staff if the date is revised. All in favor? Okay, so I get picked on when I put my hand up. So I'm not putting my hand up. It's taking all of them not to. No reports of committees, no petitions, no motions or notice of motions. No unfinished business. Any questions?
Mac, we talked about the committee of adjustment, the council appointee. I remember at the time when you appointed the council appointee, Kristen made the remark, maybe the appointee should go through the training for it. Take the course. Did the training happen or not?
For which member?
Gerald, when you get appointed. The committee of adjustment.
No. No, there hasn't been. I do have some training material I can pass on, but there hasn't been formal training, no.
Well, no, I know at the time you questioned whether they should or shouldn't, and I just wondered what happened.
I'm always willing to learn but no, I'm not done any training. Okay.
No, you don't.
You'll eventually get your material.
Very good point, valid point, thank you very much. He's giving me homework.
We're meeting it, it's still good. Time to get it done.
And you, I'm good with deadlines.
Always important. Always.
Yes.
8 p.m. You better get me out of here quick. It depends on how big it is.
Always big.
On that, moved by Deputy Reeve Carroll, second by Councillor Johnson, the committee of the whole meeting for May 6th, 2025 now be adjourned at 7:13 p.m. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, and I guess I'm putting it back to AJ.
Thank you.
So welcome back, moved by Councillor Bass, second by Councillor Johnson, that council resume the council meeting at 7:16 p.m. All in favor? That's carried. So moved by Councillor Johnson and seconded by Deputy Reeve Carroll, that council moves into closed session at 7:16 p.m. As per section 2392 of the Municipal Act 2001, SO 2001, C25, in order to address one item, human resources. More specifically, 2392, a meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered is B, personnel matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, and that Kirsten Cote, municipal manager clerk, remain in the room. All in favor? And that's carried.
Where's my hand?